Welcome back, bitch. We're here for part 3 of our Nightmare on Elm Street retrospective. What I called the decline.
What you clawed?
What?
You said clawed, but that's perfect because we did with Freddy Krueger.
Okay,
He got the claw. He got the claw.
Yeah, there's this is where the decline years of Dream Child and Freddy's Dead, where the box office starts doing this and then does this. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, from 1989.
Hey, that's my birth year.
It is directed by Stephen Hopkins, who is mostly an art direction kind of person behind the scenes, and it shows in this film, I think.
Yeah. I somewhere in my mind the phrase "I may not know art, but I know what I like" comes to mind when I think about some of the visuals of this movie, which I will give credit to, even though it's not like top of the heap. A lot of the visuals are really good, if not kind of creepy, kind of disturbing.
I mean, how I describe it as, it is a very creative and ambitious visually for a film with a very messy and rushed script.
Yeah, it's almost like a movie isn't one thing or another. It's like you kind of need multiple avenues to be at their best, or at least at the same level, and work together.
This is actually post or during Freddy's Nightmares. Freddy's Nightmares from 1988.
Yes.
This is 1989.
Which we're not doing for this, but we might tackle later on.
There was a couple writers. There's one draft called Freddy Rules. That was quickly basically.
What is he, Hulk Hogan? He just comes out ripping. He rips his shirt.
I was watching
the big leg.
I was watching the Never Sleeps Again documentary. And apparently, there was a big craze of splatterpunk horror writers, fiction writers, and books. And they had one that did Freddy Rules, but this one they got Johnny Skip and Craig Spector and Leslie Bohm to screenwrite. Leslie Bohm is mostly the reason why there's a pregnancy angle, because apparently he pitched that he had an idea of Freddy has a child, but it's obviously changed to it's Alice.
Well, he sort of got what he wanted in the next movie.
Yeah, I will say it was heavily noted that the script wasn't done when they were filming.
It shows.
It shows.
I've never seen a movie that's like so confusing and yet still like not that confusing. Like you kind of you understand kind of what's going on. It's more like the narrative makes sense. It's just the hows and the whys are very muddled. Like I texted him while watching the movie. I was like, dude, how does Freddy's resurrection in this movie even make sense? So at the end of the last movie, like
I understand how it works actually.
But I'm saying, like, at the end of the last movie, like, he died, and yeah, they do the thing, and, I don't know.
So before we get into that...
He just thought about it, and it just happened.
It's even to the point where the ending was literally made up on the spot.
I could tell.
So basically, let's get into the minutia of it. Lisa Wilcox is back as Alice, and Dan Hassel is back as Dan.
That was the same actor from Part 4?
Yeah. And also the dad's the same.
The dad I recognize, but why did he feel so different to me? Did he get a haircut?
Probably got a haircut.
That's all I can think of, because it felt like
he was still driving the same piece of shit truck.
Yeah.
That's where, like, his death... that's where I'm like, it's so visually interesting, is like
sometimes
his death was so elaborate. Like when he gets on the motorcycle and starts fusing with him, it's very Tetsuo the Iron Man and Giger-esque. Like it's very different. More mechanical then.
Yeah, I really like the way they did it. It kind of reminded me a little of the Welcome to Prime Time bitch kill.
Yes.
When the arms sprout out. It was like that on steroids. And like you see Freddy's head on like where the motor is and everything, and it's like fusing with them to the point where like it burns. I even said to my wife, I was like, did he kill him or did he just turn him into Darth Vader? Because when they do those close up and
Yeah.
he's lost his hair and everything, he does kind of look like when Darth Vader takes the
Yeah.
helmet off in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's very so it kind of faces like basically he gets her pregnant, Alice is pregnant. By the way, Alice is a much better actress in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought and I think it's more of like maybe it's like her second go around, maybe it was like her like she has more experience under it, she has a new haircut, new hair color and stuff like that. Maybe it's that. Maybe she took a bite out of the because she's the main character. She like Tuesday Night is not. They're not like co-lead, I guess. She's the lead character now, so I think it's more like she has more practice and everything like that.
They also had more for her to do.
Yes.
So I mean that probably helped as well
with the pregnancy thing. You know,
right. I mean when you're the main focus, I think you try a little harder, you go a little harder, and I think maybe that might have been a motivation. Again, it could come down to maybe, we gave him some flack on some of the story elements, but maybe as a director, maybe like he's really good at getting the best he can get out of people. Because remember, sometimes somebody's best isn't necessarily amazing, but it works for what you need. And maybe he was able to do that.
Yeah, and
with her. And also a change of hair color must have gone a long way too.
And Alice and Dan have new friends. They made new friends so quick.
And her friends suck.
Okay, so this is why I'm like, this is definitely a rush script because they wanted to get to the kills. They want to get over stuff. Because if you notice, they establish the characters at the graduation. It's like lightning round speed of like they establish the characters' quirks and what they do and all this stuff like that, and the parents and the dad, and then there's expectation from Dan's dad because the coach was there, and the coach was in the group photo for some reason. I don't know what that was about, but we're gonna establish that we have Yvonne, who is an athlete. Swimmer person.
Yeah.
We have Mark, who the actor said that the character was originally wanted the character to be like goth, but he went for like 90s teen, but it was 89. It was that cusp of like you know that look.
It was like that like late 80s not when I say adult, I don't mean pornographic, but like grown up themed like comic book kind of person.
Yes.
When like we're starting to get into more mature stories for like Batman and like Spawn's getting ready to come out, so it hasn't happened yet, but it's getting ready to come
edgy
out.
Comic books.
The edgier comic books are coming out, and guys like him are, I mean, when you see like, he kind of reminded me a little of
the character for Comic Zone. Video game.
I was gonna say from Roseanne. I can't think of his name right now. His character David kind of made me think a little like David from Roseanne, but like if he had if he was annoying.
Yeah. And then there's Greta, who is the spoiled girl that is anorexic.
I think she wants to be. She wants to be a model, or at least her mother wants her to be a model. And models are notorious for starving themselves and not eating. That's the stereotype. Whether or not that's true these days, I can't speak on because my modeling days have come and gone.
Oh, and there's also one other character I forgot to establish is Jacob, played by the Jurassic Park kid. He was also in Addams Family, I believe. Yeah. I thought it was the kid for the brother from Matilda for a minute. It's not the same person. It's a boy. But there's a lot of cool things. That's the problem with this movie. There's a lot of cool things. Like I legit think the dream that Alice has, where she is Amanda. I think that's the mother's name. Freddy's mom. She's in a nun outfit and she's in the room with 100 maniacs.
Yeah.
And it's so like greasy and gross and it's such a cool idea, but it's just like, the script sucks.
Yeah.
Like there's another one that like they try different things. Like they do different effects, like the claymation. Like when Greta gets killed, Alice opens the fridge and like the fruit start rotting. It's a claymation style. I thought it was really cool.
Kind of like in part 3.
Yeah, like when Greta gets killed, that was heavily edited, by the way. I've seen like the deleted footage. Like he's literally like digging through her stomach and feeding her stomach.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of stuff that I think needed to be in that scene, because I was saying to my wife, even she says, it's kind of weird how like he literally he puts one piece of food in her mouth, she spits it out, and then we cut back, and now her face, like she's full, like No, they should have kept that stuff.
But that scene is so cool because it is very nightmare of her family, like, taunting her and stuff like that, and, like, the long table. It's always a haunting look.
Especially that big guy with the I think he had like a blue jacket and poofy hair.
Bon appetit, bitch.
I want to know that guy's story.
Yeah, and there's even other things like the comic book one. Like, the idea of it, like, because when they filmed it, they didn't, like, do it in post, but took all the color out. No, the whole set was black and white.
It kind of shows in certain aspects.
I'm like, that's so cool. And the way they do the effect of, like, where he's, like when he's paper, that's actually paper that they're waving in front of the camera. Like, I thought that's a cool idea. The problem is...
It's not scary.
The problem is it's skateboarding Freddy. It's super Freddy. Which I'm just like, why?
And it's just not scary.
It's not.
It's not. It's interesting, but it's not scary. It's not. It doesn't feel right. Again, even though, like you said, good visual, good idea, it just doesn't. If they would have shot it maybe darker, it could have worked.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's also so freaking bright as well, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense because you want to show it off, but like...
It's a low kill count. There's only 3 characters get killed in this.
Yeah.
Also... Yvonne lives.
Also, I think this might be the only time, or the first time he played 2 roles outside of Freddy.
Yeah, he was the maniac.
He was one of the maniacs, and when they were in the real world, he was the actual waiter.
Yeah.
They don't show his whole face, but they show from. You can, as Caitlin my wife put it, he has a very distinct lower half.
Are you talking about the Greta scene?
Yeah, when he's not when it's not the dream, he's the actual waiter, and then when he's in the dream, obviously he's Freddy is the waiter.
And the beginning, when you talk about how Freddy became alive, by the way, I love the church scene at the end of Dream Master and basically the revival of Freddy here. I love the look of that.
It is a good look. It's just
I think what happened was she got pregnant, and through the baby's alive, right? So now Freddy he can't get into her because she's defeated him, but he can get into the womb, the fetus. I don't know exactly, and the baby Freddy's kind of creepy looking, and basically he got into the clothes and he became real Freddy. For some reason, when he came back, one arm was longer than the other. I don't understand that one. Did you notice that? That one arm was like super
I did.
long?
Well, no, I think he even makes a mention of it. I don't know.
It's a boy.
That was the only good one-liner in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me, though, because, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Or I shouldn't say correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me, because I can't remember. How does 4 end?
4 ends with she had to show evil through the mirror. Let us show evil itself, and that'll defeat it. And then he basically, remember, it was like the hands start ripping him apart.
Okay.
And the soul's bye, Alice, bye.
Okay.
And then he's like turns to like clothes.
So basically, in essence,
exactly
an actual definitive end to Freddy Krueger.
Yes. This one, I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're like, well, he thought, it's like he thought about it. And it's like, but he's not alive to think about it. Like, I could understand, like, they could have done something. Anything. And it just, he's just back. Like, this was the laziest return. But, however, as we agree, with a great visual, lazy idea.
And the ending is also so freaking cool. Like, they do the what are they called?
The MC Escher thing?
The Escher steps. I love that.
Yeah.
There's little moments of like when they're fighting, like she's got like Freddy's like morphing out of her, and it's got a weird like kind of body horror, like her face is getting ripped, and then like apparently that was an actual like person that had no legs was attached to her as Freddy. And they're kind of fighting on like the stained glass. But the stained glass is upside down now, and like they're standing on it. I thought it was really cool. And then I don't know what happened.
Well,
the kid decides I'm gonna be a good boy, and I'm gonna shoot a big old skin.
Well, remember, first he tries to lure Freddy in by embracing his Freddy side.
Yeah.
So where like he has a little bit of the messed up face. Didn't look good. I think that and the kid trying to do a Freddy voice, like, they should have really just, like, dubbed Robert Englund's voice.
Well, here's something.
Over the kid.
And also, let's talk about Freddy's makeup. It was awful.
It's
not awful, but
I would
it's not
say that, except it's worse than the next movie.
I know. Apparently, the idea is they wanted to make his makeup more aged. Like they wanted him to be more older looking and stuff like that, and worn down. But also, they said the big key there was it's also easier to put on and take off. And
so that's what they really want.
It's called
bullshit.
It's called budget limitation.
No, it's called bullshit. It's called bullshit.
Just so you know, that Dream Child is, I believe, the lowest grossing Nightmare on Elm Street film of all of them. And apparently, I don't have the dates in front of me, but it was released less than a year since Dream Master.
Yes, because Dream Master was 88. This one's 89.
They're just cranking it out, and that's the problem. You crank it out, and you get this. I feel so bad because there's such cool things to this.
All I'll say is maybe instead of making the Dream Child, maybe they should have cranked one out.
Oh, and it has your favorite kind of ending. It's your favorite thing because you love the girls with the jump rope.
I hate those things.
And of course, if they pan out and then they're doing it.
Yeah, but they do that cool thing where like Amanda like he goes back inside Amanda and then she's like taking it away and then his claw pops out and it was
that plan didn't work out so well for Amanda's ghost.
Well, here's the thing about that. We ripped on the first two movies for doing that and we hated it. Or maybe we didn't hate it, but we didn't like it. I don't know why.
This one works.
It worked for this one.
I agree.
Because especially knowing we were going to get another sequel less than a year later. Well, I don't know if the people knew at the time how quickly they were going to get one. At least it was open.
I will also say this also, just like Dream Master, has a rap at the end.
Yes, not as good as the Fat Boys.
By Houdini. But yeah, that's our thoughts on Dream Child. I mean, ambitious... a good idea visually, but script is a miss.
Yeah.
But don't worry, it just goes downhill from here with Freddy's Dead.
So yeah, Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare, which, two things. Number one, it's technically the truth because this is the last canonical Robert Englund film because the next one is in a whole nother thing, and then Freddy vs. Jason is technically non-canonical,
and the remake is not
right. But fun piece of trivia: there are only 2 Nightmare on Elm Street franchise movies in the 90s. Neither of them are called Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's kind of like Friday the 13th. I think all the 90s ones were not called Friday the 13th.
There's so many parallels here.
Sadly, Halloween is just called Halloween.
It is fitting. So many parallels. You've got all the 90s entries. The 90s entries not having the actual name of the franchise in it. New Line Cinema. Yes. And weird demonic worm snake thingies.
Yes. Fun fact: we actually have a 6 degrees to this movie, actually.
What do you mean by that?
Like 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon,
I know it's 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. Like, do you mean personally?
Personally.
Okay, I'm curious about this.
So our first connection between us and Freddy Krueger, I guess, and particularly this movie, is George Stover, who we worked with on The Chair and various films that we kind of just fell apart. But we worked with him for years, and very swell person. We
also did a pretty good interview with him.
Who was
that's on our channel.
I think it's still on YouTube. Yeah, if you and if you don't know who George Stover is, he's a very independent. He's an indie cult kind of actor. He's in Don Doller films.
I'm about to say, have you seen John Waters or Don Doller? He's in those.
But that's the point. Is John Waters? He's in Female Trouble and other films, mostly Female Trouble. He's like the preacher. Rachel Talalay, who was the director of this film, worked on those John Waters films. Also, fun fact, we actually have more connection. There's more 6 degrees, because New Line Cinema, before the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, they also helped fund Polyester, which is a John Waters film.
That we reviewed on Criterion Connection.
There's so many parallels to this that that means that's like 4 degrees. So that means that we're close to. So that's like 7 degrees to like Wes Craven.
So basically, we need to thank John Waters.
And also Baltimore. And when I hear that Rachel worked on like stuff like Hairspray, it makes sense because the carnival scene especially made me feel very John Waters. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We got to talk more pre-production on this.
Oh no.
Okay. This one, it's so interesting, this one. So do you know that there was a script, the original part 6, the script was written by Peter Jackson. This is
really?
This is bad taste. I believe Dead Alive just came out around this time. One of the producers at New Line Cinema, or one of the people who worked there, was like, you gotta check out Peter Jackson. And Peter Jackson wrote a draft, but also Michael DeLuca and Rachel Talalay, the director, wrote their own draft. I don't know if like Peter Jackson and them were just doing it just like on spec or whatever. I don't know what that's about, or if they did it at the same time, or like they didn't like the Peter Jackson version and they went with this anyway. So Peter Jackson's version was called The Dream Lover. And apparently the idea was Freddy is so old and decrepit and weak that kids actually will take sleeping pills on purpose to go beat him up as a gag. But eventually he kills one of them. Then the other idea there was a cop that's in a coma. So he's permanently in Freddy's world. So I guess the cop's the main hero and he's got to stop Freddy. But they were like, we want to do the Freddy's Dead version more. So they chose a real rotten idea and chose that script over the Peter Jackson script.
Here's the thing. You take away Peter Jackson's name and give it that same idea. That is a much more interesting idea than not only this, but maybe the last 2 movies before it.
Yeah. And that's a great idea, but it did open the door for Peter Jackson and New Line Cinema for Lord of the Rings.
Did they explain why it's called The Dream Lover?
No. So this movie takes place 10 years after Dream Child. I'm assuming that's what it meant.
I'm gonna have to assume. It all depends on if it's canon, because I don't think part 2 is canon to any of the sequels.
No.
So it all depends on what that movie sees as canon.
So all the there's John Doe. We never found out his actual name.
No, it was his actual name. I found some fun trivia when I was looking it up, and it turns out his character's name was going to be revealed to be John Doherty. And the thing is, I'm making that up, but it doesn't feel out of place.
And boy howdy, you're like, okay, it's a long nightmare sequence in the beginning. Okay, or it's like a normal Nightmare on Elm Street, and then the Wizard of Oz thing happens.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
you know what you're getting into, and once
you don't actually. It gets stupider.
No, but you definitely know, like, okay, we're getting goofy on this one.
The Never Sleeps Again documentary was trying to point out that like the Freddy Krueger being Bugs Bunny-ish
Bunny, he was every Looney Tune in the book.
Was on purpose.
Well, of course it was. How do you accidentally push a bed of nails? You know, like,
yeah, it's very
now, did this have anything to do with the character having that like crossover appeal where they had like dolls and stuff? Like, was it more done that way to kind of like not necessarily cater to children, but like, should a child see this movie, they're not going to be as freaked out as if they saw the first movie?
I don't think so, because there's also the problem with the tonal of, like, you know, again, the backstory of Freddy Krueger, and there's also there's one cool idea of this film that I'm surprised it took this long to do. Abusive parents, and using that trauma as a weapon against the kids. Because you remember, like, I think her name was Tracy, but she beats up her dad because her dad, you know, abused her and stuff like that.
Right.
And also Carlos, and Spencer not so much, but Carlos, you know, with the, you know, he's deaf in one ear because he was abused. Like, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. Wrong movie.
Not only that,
tone-wise.
Another interesting idea. Well, there were 2 interesting ideas. 2 more. Is number 1, the idea of there's no longer any kids in Springwood.
Yeah, I love the post-apocalyptic
the idea that either a lot of the parents either moved away, or they all just agreed to stop having kids, or whatever whatever the reasoning behind it is, the fact that Springwood now is completely devoid of kids, so much so that you have the couple played by Roseanne and Tom Arnold who, they want to be parents, but because they live in Springwood, they can't do it.
There's one moment where Roseanne's kissing the kids.
Yeah.
And you see Tracy, like, she's about to break into laughter.
Well,
you could tell.
Well, yeah, because the dude was getting a boner.
Anyway.
And the other idea is the idea that somehow, through some kind of dream logic, he is stuck in Springwood. Yeah. He cannot get out of Springwood, whether it be due to power limitations, whether it be just some kind of limitation. He cannot escape.
The dream people have a limit.
Yeah, so he can't escape Springwood, and the idea of the movie is he's trying to build himself up to become powerful enough to where he can break the barrier.
It's actually kind of a neat little trick he does. Nice. He has a plan on this one.
Yeah, because and then
that you don't know about until
the problem with that good idea though is not just that it's poorly executed, but the fact that it requires a blood relative in order to do that. And we've already established that Amanda Kruger's dead. We have to assume his dad's dead at this point, because when you see Alice Cooper, he has to be dead, or he killed his father,
on a golf course,
or something like that. So you're like, well, what else can you do? Because it sounds kind of silly if you do it was his aunt, or it was his uncle, or his cousin. It's what I mean when you say
it's Palpatine again.
When you bring those familial elements to it, it always feels like a joke. So you always got to do either, if you can't do parents, you do a child. And so we have this story, which in a weird way kind of helps humanize Freddy Krueger pre-transformation. But in doing so, it creates probably one of the worst protagonists in the entire series, Maggie.
And John Doe, because it's originally, the idea is John Doe is the kid, but then John Doe is dead. And basically reveals that Maggie is the kid. But you kind of figure it out once she has the dream, when they have the news clippings and she has the dream and you don't know what's going on. You kind of figure it out.
Well, and the little girl who's... It's just, once you know it's a little... You see the little girl, you're like, it has to be a girl. And it can't be the bitchy girl. It has everything... Again, interesting ideas that could have been in a better movie. Could have worked. And I think that's why when I was watching it, I wasn't hating it. I didn't hate it as much as I hated part 5. But, man, after dwelling on it, there was a period of time where my feelings on it were much different. Whereas I hated it, but I kind of liked the piece of crap that we got in a way.
Many.
But now when you think about it, and you think about the cool ideas that could have been...
Here's one that it's the Carlos death scene, where, he takes the Q-tip. I don't understand the logic of this. So he takes the Q-tip and puts it through both ears, knocks out the hearing aid. He can still hear Freddy, but he gets his ear cut off. Now he can't hear Freddy. But it's established that if his earring's out, he can't hear anything. So I don't know how that works. But anyway,
was it because in reality that was his good ear?
I don't know. No, because he cuts off this ear, and you see that when he puts the Q-tip.
No, he cuts off the right ear.
No, when he does the Q-tip, the hearing aid pops out of that ear, and he cuts that ear off. And by the way, when he gets the Freddy ear, he puts it on the good ear and not the one that got cut off.
Well, that's what I was saying. He cut off the bear. Maybe he's not totally deaf.
Anyway.
That's the only logic. Look, we're trying to find logic in an illogical film.
So, an idea, it's a cool idea of there's a moment where he falls and he's in the boiler room-esque area, and he's walking around. He can't hear anything. You just hear the heartbeat, and you see Freddy behind him. Cool idea of tension.
Yes.
But the problem is, he's acting like Bugs Bunny.
He's acting like a goober.
And he drops the pin, and I'm like, okay, that's whatever.
I did like the idea. I did like the fake out of he's holding the pin. Because in another movie, it's really goofy. But when you think about he's got the hearing sensitivity and everything, oh, this is going to mess him up. So when he's teasing with the one pin, I do like the idea that he's able to catch it in time. Yeah. And then he pulls out the handful of needles.
And he adds that missile falling sound.
Oh my god, I was so mad when they did that.
And then they
really?
And then the pins don't do anything. And then he grabs the chalkboard and you're like, oh no.
It wasn't that he just grabbed the chalkboard.
Oh, no.
He could have just used a chalkboard. No, it's the fact that he grabs it and the chalkboard keeps getting bigger. And it's not like if you have a bigger chalkboard, the nails will be louder. It's like
cool idea with it, like you're taking advantage of like someone that's deaf. Like how can it's a handicap against someone stronger than you. It's the underdog feel like.
You can't tell me this wasn't made because kids were getting into Freddy and they didn't want to scare the kids too much.
And then you thought it can't be worse than that.
Get out of here now!
Then we get to the Spencer kill, which
on paper is a really cool idea.
He gets
if you did this kill now with like the way graphics are and the way games are now, you could really do something with
Here's
it.
something I like, the whole scene of like when he sees Carlos on the TV with all the dead souls, like don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. Cool. I like that. And the blood filling in the TV. Cool. But then Freddy is playing video games and, Breckenmeyer is just like, he's playing as him and not against him. But I was like, why are they doing this? But then I figured, so we can do control and do the pogo stick thing.
Yeah, because Lord knows when they did it in the real world.
And then they stop him, and then he pulls out like it was supposed to be. It was originally supposed to be a power glove. Now I have the power. It was originally supposed to be a power glove, but Nintendo was like, no. And Robert Shea's like, we're still going to keep the line, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
I heard that power glove actually boosted in sales. Maybe I don't know. Or they didn't watch it or care because it's Freddy's dead.
And one of the things that this movie, and something that happened that we didn't mention in part 5, excuse me, the green screen effects are terrible in this movie. But also in the last one, we didn't mention. So when Dan is dying, they cut to a shot where Alice is working at the diner, and you could tell something was going to happen, like green screen related.
Yeah.
And then they just like jump scare you with Dan like falling into a big hole, and it's like, what was the point of that? Same with this one. They do a thing with John Doe where like he's walking up the steps in the dream. And then you see him walking up the steps. Now they have established that like, sometimes what you do in the dream, you do in real life. But like I can understand like if Freddy does something to you, if Freddy lifts you up and you float in the air. But he's walking on steps, and yet he's walking on steps that go it looked so bad. Even for the time, it looked so bad.
I mean, that's not all that was bad. There's this idea that I did not know. Okay, so apparently for this film, it's 3D. The gimmick is if she puts her glasses on, you put the 3D glasses on.
So basically, the end of the movie is 3D.
Yeah, they really tack that on right at the end, and you're what? There's a couple other things I'll say. Worst makeup ever. Worst. It's so rubbery.
It looked like a Spirit Halloween mask.
Yes. The person who plays John Doe, I forget, I did not write his name because I didn't care. Sorry guy. Awful. There's a moment where like,
is anybody any good in this movie?
I think Tracy's pretty decent.
I guess.
And the doctor, the male doctor, I think he's good.
Okay. You got me on him.
But like, there's a moment where Maggie, or Catherine Kruger, whatever, Maggie is like, when John Doe shows up, Maggie's like, I wrote down, where are you from? And then John Doe just starts yelling, I don't know! And you're like, oh, my God. Anyway, there is one thing that Freddy Krueger's also really bad in it. Like, there's a moment where he's like, was it every town has an Elm Street? You're like, Elm Street was like Americana. It's not literally Elm Street. No. They never mention it in the original or anywhere. It's called Elm Street.
However, great line.
It is.
And not only that, but if you're the kind of person that's into those, like, it's the thought of it that's scary, I think that is probably the only good line in the whole movie.
And to be fair, every town does have Elm Street.
That is true.
JFK knows real well.
Questions?
So next part, that's it for part 3. We're going to talk about part 4. Next episode, which is I dub the reinvention era, which is we're gonna do New Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and the remake that has Rorschach. I forgot his name. What's his name?